everyone, this is one of my authors chats of the week, and I'll just give it a few minutes to start sending out notifications that my live is live, and I'll be joined in a little bit by my co-host this week. It's been a little over a week since I've done one of these. That's because I have been away at a big conference in Vegas for, well, pretty much all last week, and of course I came back and I crashed, and now I'm fending off a cold. Lovely stuff. But yeah, I'm really excited. I was at 20 books to 50K in Vegas, and that's one of the largest conferences for indie authors in the States, and one of the largest ones, if not one of the largest one in the world. I mean, it is a big thing for indie authors, and it was absolutely fantastic. I had learned so much to the point where I'm still going through all the notes of all the sessions that I took, and been working on moving ahead with a couple projects based off some of the things I've learned, so I'm really excited about that. And yeah, so last week was a whirlwind. It was so much fun because I was able to meet a lot of other fellow book talkers and authors of Book Talk, and it's just really neat to meet someone face-to-face versus these virtual kind of meet and greets, which I'll be doing in the next couple minutes. But let me keep an eye out for my co-host and see when I see her jump on. Right now, I do not see her on at the moment. I'll give her a few minutes. It always takes a moment to sync and get going, but yeah, one of the big hot topics was direct sales. So if anybody has been on Book Talk lately, I know a lot of people have been talking about, see if I send this invite correctly, maybe get into that a little bit later. We shall see. Drum roll, please. Hello!
Hello!
How are you?
I'm doing okay. Let me see if I can adjust myself a little bit here and get it better. There we go. That way you're not looking at my nose.
Perfect. I want to give you a couple things just in advance. One, I see that my service is really spotty today, so if I lose you, I apologize in advance.
It's okay.
I'm going to do my best. And the other thing is I'm fending off a cold, so also apologies if I'm sniffing a lot.
That's okay. I'm just recovering from one. I came back from the you can still hear it in my voice. I have that slightly husky sound that I don't normally have. I came back from the historical romance retreat at the end of October. Something went through the entire hotel and we all were sick, and it took like a week and a half to get better, and then I had to roll right into Books in the Desert, and I'm just like, I need you to be able to stay home and be sick, so take care of yourself and don't let it run you ragged is the lesson. That's the moral of the story.
Yeah, I just came back from 20 books to 50K in Vegas, and so
that.
I think everybody who I was with, all of a sudden, we're like, we all have head colds now. We're like,
Yes.
well, that was nice. It was a fun meet and greet and sharing of knowledge and germs.
Right. You're sharing a lot more than just book information. But I will say I saw that on your feed that you went, and I was a little jealous. I went last year, and I wanted to go this year, but between the two book signings and everything, I just couldn't fit it in. But I was a little sad because this is the last year it's going to be branded as the 20 books to 50K. So I was a little, like, I would have liked to have gone to their last sort of, huzzah,
Yes, but of course it's going to continue on as, if I remember correctly, Author Nation now. So it'll still be there. And I know a lot of the authors, I mean, everybody who I talk to intends to continue going if at all possible, obviously. Some years you can't for whatever reason. But yeah, so welcome to my live. And kind of how I do this is we keep it pretty informal. I will let you introduce yourself and talk about what you write, and we'll just go from there.
Okay. Well, I'm, oh my gosh, I just came from class and I almost said, I'm Professor Deerwester Dalrymple. I'm Michelle Deerwester Dalrymple, or what's better known as Michelle. Pause, because that last name, I was absent on picking your writer's name day. And, and so I write mostly historical romance. I write Highlanders for the most part, from like the ancient sort of insular Celts all the way up through like the Jacobites. So I run the gamut there. And then I do have some contemporary that I write. Like I said, I teach. I'm a college professor, and then my husband's a police officer and a retired Marine. So, like, when the universe hands you a gift, you just got to kind of, go with it. So I do write those as well. That's like when my brain's fried and I need a break from the history. I'm
Oh yeah.
like, I'm just gonna write something where I don't have to do that much research.
Oh, I
So
understand.
yeah, so that's mostly of kind of what I write. I have my main series, the one that's kind of finished with all books, is my Glen Highland Romance. It's medieval during the time of Robert the Bruce, shortly after William Wallace. Pardon
Mm-hmm.
me. And that's including the prequel and the Christmas like bonus story. It's 10 books total. And then
Fantastic.
yeah, and then I have my ancient kind of Celtic. It's during the Roman invasion of Britannia. And I've got about 5 books in there. I have 2 more books in the series I need to finish writing. Um, and then I have my latest series that I'm working on is the Glencoe Highlanders, which is kind of the events that predate Outlander.
Mm-hmm.
In that time period, takes place about 50 years before. Um, and then I have 2 other book series. One is through those are the ones that my husband and I publish through our own like publishing house because I
Mm-hmm.
write a lot with my husband, and then he has his own book series as well. Um, but I also have a like a fairy tale retelling series, which is actually doing very well. I didn't expect.
That's very popular right now too.
Yeah. And I do it from the villain standpoint, and they are a little darker. I mean,
Mm.
my historicals are, well, you know how it is. You write some, okay, you have Vikings, and so, sometimes that stuff is rather dark. And
Mm-hmm.
so,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it kind of goes with the territory. But so these are like villain retellings, and they're told from the perspective of like things that would logically make sense for why the villain ended up doing the things they did, so that way the
Mm-hmm.
reader's like, oh my gosh, I'm the villain in the story, like I would have done the same type of thing, like I would have reacted the same way. So I have fun with those. And then a I have a historical time travel. It's like an alternate history time travel.
Ooh.
And that was picked up through Spiteful Books, because spite's a wonderful motivator. And that's yeah. And so that just came out like about 2 weeks ago, I think. We did kind of a soft release, and now we're getting all the everything ready for the big push. So that just came out. So I've been scrambling with all of that. So that's me. That's me in a nutshell.
That's fantastic. I love that. And I always love hearing authors who are figuring out or have figured out how to navigate jumping between different genres because
Yeah.
that can be very tough, especially in the marketing side of things.
I would not say that I'm very good at it at all. Like just from like selling through, Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, etc. I feel like I don't get a whole lot where I'm doing well with like
Mm.
marketing and selling. But if I go to book fairs, like I was at Books in the Desert, and like I sold out of all of my police and my marine, and I do book boxes, and those were wildly successful. I sold out of
Love
all of
it.
my fairy tales, and I sold a good number of historicals, but I had like none left for a lot of my other more contemporary series. So like on site, even dressed in full Highlander regalia, I can sell my contemporaries better in person than I can through like social media and advertising and stuff. I can't figure that out. But and I do it mostly just for, I wouldn't say the fun of it, but just
Yeah.
for the kind of the break. And what about you? I know that you have your kind of dark fantasy kind of Viking. Do you have any other like cross genres like that beyond that?
I always qualify my book series as epic fantasy in various means, but yeah, I have 3 series at the moment, and my darkest series, which is aimed for adults, is my
Mhm.
novella series, which you can never see in these lights, but it is my dark
No,
Viking fantasy. Or
that's a beautiful print in the back. I love that. I want to get something like that done, and that's one of the best kind of poster or print representations I've seen of people doing that with their books. I think it's beautiful.
thank you. Yeah, it was something I've been wanting to do because when doing all these lives, and especially on Book Talk, I hate inverting everything. So I already had my things inverted for me, and so I just leave it up there. See?
There, look at you being clever. I
See,
love
it's the whole mirror
that.
image thing, and it was just like that works, that works. But yeah, and it's also like Vanna White right here.
Yeah.
Someday people won't understand that reference, but it's like I can be the
And here's
whole. I know
this.
exactly where. But yeah, I have my Norse kind of a retelling of Nordic myth, And then kind of on my other two series, I have a new adult War Shifter series,
Okay.
which is my first series I ever wrote, and it's 4 books, and it's a complete series. And then I also have a young adult. It has a lot of different subgenres. Portal
Yeah.
fantasy, noble bright, clean fantasy. It's that kind of
Yeah.
positive epic fantasy
Yeah, it's not
questing
the darker.
vibes. And so there are 3 out at the moment, and the 4th will be released hopefully early next year. And that's a lot of fun for me because it's a magical multiverse, and I love pulling
Yeah.
from all sorts of mythos. So that one's just kind of a good free for
More
all of
inventive, where you
various
don't have
myth.
to feel beholden to anything. I get that. I get that. So that's where with my fairy tales. My fairy tales are a little more young adult. Everything else I write is steamy. I wouldn't say super spicy. I would
Mm-hmm.
probably, I'm kind of one of those mid levels where it's a 3 to 4. Um, but the the fairy tales are definitely like closed door, fade to black. There's really nothing like overtly, steamy or spicy with those at all. Which is a bit different for me, because I normally write a lot of open door. But like I said, and so I wasn't sure how well I'd be able to convey that. I don't know, but it does really work. And again, like you said, it's a little bit lighter. You don't have like so much of the study and
Mm-hmm.
history. Pardon me, I'm going to close my door here. It's raining.
No worries. I have one question that popped up. I'll just quickly
Yeah,
answer that. And
yeah,
anytime you see questions pop up, feel free to read them because I never know how lives work. Sometimes we
neither
see
do
them
I.
both. Other times you see one and I see one, but we don't
Right?
see that. Yeah. So I have one that popped up a moment ago, and it was asking about my Viking series is called The Guardian Speaker, and it's pretty simple. Volumes 1, 2, 3, and they continue
Yeah, I
on.
saw
The
that.
12th
That's
one,
smart.
yeah, well, novellas, they're short. And the
Yeah.
12th one will release next week on the 21st, and there'll be 16 in total. The last 4 will be released next year, and it is just a very immersive experience in Nordic myth. So if you're familiar with it, I'm
Yes.
not focusing on Thor and Loki and Odin and all
Yeah.
those kind of stuff. I'm really delving into some really obscure lore,
Yes.
predominantly starting off with Fugia, which are the animal-shaped
Mhm.
guardian spirits
Yes.
they believed in, and I'll go from that mythos and take you on a journey throughout the 9 realms of that myth. Sorry, hopefully that will answer that question. But yeah.
No, that's
So when you were talking about your historical romances, so what got you interested in, you said, the Celtic lore and all
yeah.
that kind of history?
So I've always been a fan of like mythology and the like, kind of course starting off with like your late elementary, middle school, like Greek and Roman type of mythology. But I've always been a fan of it. And I had a weird book series when I was a kid. My parents bought me this like set of childcraft books, which were these like educational, like themed encyclopedias for kids. And
I
I
like that.
adored these books. These were I lived on these books, and there was a whole couple of them that were just like they had a lot of mythology in them. Like they always had
Mm-hmm.
stories, and so I kind of grew up on just like the different stories and storytelling. And so, Gage Mullins asked, he says, I messed up. What was the name again of the Viking
It's
fantasy?
called The Guardian's Speaker. And if you go to my page, you can find out more about it. I have a link in my bio, and it has, one of those link tree kind of like things.
Yes,
And
I love
I
link
have all
trees.
that information tucked in there as well. But yeah, it's called The Guardian's Speaker.
Um, so that's where I kind of first started, like, because like as a lot of us who are writers, we started reading very young. And so, and I was even talking to my mom last night. This was so cute. So the book fair I went to this weekend was wildly successful. And
Nice.
I'm a talker. And when I'm in public spheres, I can be very much an extrovert. And I'm loud. And so it's like a party at my table when people come by. And
I love
so
it.
I had a lot of people coming by. And it was just really, I met so many people, I had people buying books, asking about the books. I was handing out my merch. It was just really a good vibe. And I was telling my mom about this. And my mom was like talking about how proud she is. She goes, I feel so proud. She goes, I feel like I contributed to that because I had you reading by the time you were 2 and 3 years old.
No.
Okay, Mom, we will totally give you full credit for this whole successful weekend that I had. But it was cute.
It
Um,
was.
so, and then I was just like, as a kid, you're writing, I'm doing my, my teenage angst poetry stuff. But I've always been interested in kind of, Scotland and the Celts and the kilts and just, kind of everything
Mm-hmm.
about that. And when I was in graduate school, I had the opportunity. I was at University of California, Riverside. They had an amazing library. And so, I was able to do a lot more, like I was looking at books and stories and research just for my own fun. And then I had seen Braveheart with William Wallace, and I think Rob Roy came out at the same time. So you had this whole influx of like Scottish historicals. And I had been reading historical romances since I was like
Mhm.
too young, really, since I was too young. And so there was just sort of this convergence. And when I was in college, like my senior year of college, so a lot of this converged right around like in a year or two. Um, Diana Gabaldon's book Outlander came out, and
Mhm.
I had a friend who picked it up at there was a bookstore in my college town that sold nothing but historical romance and fantasy. That was it. They didn't sell anything else. It was a very weird niche bookstore. And so he picked up like a fantasy, and he picked up this Outlander book. He goes, it looked like a historical romance. I thought you'd like it. And it was the original, like where it had the dual cover and it had the cutout. And it was like the original run of the book. Um, and I read it, and I was really fascinated. I liked her writing style. It was a slightly more developed book. Like it had a lot more going on. So it was like longer than some of my
Mhm.
other historical romances that I'd read. And it just kind of got me thinking about like the storytelling and the like. And about a year or two later, I'd read a couple more historicals, and my husband at the time was like, why don't you try writing one? And
There you
so
go.
I did, but it took me like 15 years before, 10 years before I finished it, 15 years before I did anything with it, which wasn't much. Um, and then what happened was, I'm a college professor, and I was applying for tenure at some of the schools I was teaching at, but I was a little bit older by this point,
Mhm.
and I kept getting denied. They're like, no, we don't want you full time. We don't want you tenured. And after like a semester of just like, pardon my language, just whoring myself out for this school to get this position. Like I was doing everything. And they passed me over for two people who had just gotten their graduate degrees, for people never been in a classroom, never taught. And I'm just like, I'm done. And so I went to my husband and I said, are you okay with me maybe stepping back from some of my teaching and whoring myself out for my books because I'm done with this? And he goes,
Mhm.
yes, be a whore for
Love
yourself.
it.
And I was like, there you go. I will be empowered then. And so that's kind of the like long version of how I got here. But so that's kind of what inspired me, though, was really those historical romances, the Joanna Lindsay, the Julie Garwoods, and then Diana Gabaldon, and then just kind of hit full force.
Well, I think you mentioned behind the scenes that you are on probably the other side of the country than I am, because I'm East Coast.
Yeah.
But
Hence the
does
time
you think?
confusion.
Yeah,
My
it's
bad.
fine. It's
It was
fine. It's
all
fine.
me. All me. I was so bad.
That's why I always try to let you know like what time zone, because that does play a effect,
And it was just,
especially when you're trying to talk to people in other countries.
yes, it
Always
was
pay
just bad
attention.
math on my part. I was subtracting 2 hours, not three. And I'm like, where did I get 1 o'clock from? So yeah, I don't ask me to do math.
That's fine. But what popped in my mind was, and in North Carolina, the Highlands, and they do have a lot of
Yes.
pockets of Scottish groups, and they like to throw Highland games, especially
Mhm.
different times a year. And I
Yes.
don't know if your books and like ever having a booth in some kind of, again, a Highland game kind of festival would do
I
well, just
love
because
that
it has
idea.
that tie-in.
And I have thought of it because I've known people who've done that, who go to like the Renaissance festivals, and
Mm-hmm.
I have thought of that, but for some reason every time we try to work it out, like it's a weekend I can't do it. And so I
Fair.
haven't had that opportunity yet. But you were talking about like Highland games and stuff. So another kind of impetus that I kind of left out with the whole what's got me started on the writing is when I was in college, I met the guy who became my first husband, and thus the name Dalrymple. That's where that comes from. And the Dalrymples are actual like they're the villains in Scottish history. And like the reason for like a major massacre and everything was a result of a guy
Mm.
named Lord John Dalrymple. And so I liked that connection to like Scottish history that was through like my like that side of my family and everything. And so that became a also kind of a one of the reasons why I even started digging into the research as much as I did, was just because I wanted to know. I knew he was a villain. I wanted to know more about him, and it just kind of built from there. And that's one of the reasons why I use the name. I wanted
Yeah.
my maiden name because I was Deerwester for so long, but I also wanted my married name because if the universe gives you a gift, you kind of want to
Yes.
use it, right? So um but like with those Highland games and stuff like that, like I think we went once when we lived in Chicago or Michigan or something. I can't remember where. And but we had to go under like my grandfather's. His last name is Lee. He's a Lee, and because we don't go under Dalrymple because people will throw tomatoes at you and stuff. Like it's
Oh no.
not like that's how villainous. That's how villainous like the everything was. Like this guy was and he did it. He was a jerk about why he did it. Like he didn't have to do what he did. He basically said, "Oh, you didn't turn in your paperwork in time. We're just going to go ahead and let the army kill your people." And yeah, yeah, super nice guy, super nice guy. Everyone's best friend.
Of
But,
course.
so he's not. It's not a real popular last name in a
Hmm.
lot of Scottish environments. So it's. But I'm like, like I said, someone gives you a name, kind of gotta.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely understand, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I got into Nordic myth
Yeah.
and Viking history was because I'm Swedish by descent on my dad's side,
Okay.
and so that's just the curiosity of like the history,
Yes.
and you delve into the history and the mythos, and it becomes this kind of like spiral, and all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're like super immersed, you're just inspired. So
Yes,
I get that.
exactly. I think that's awesome that you have kind of that familial connection there as well. I think that's, for some reason that makes like the digging in and doing those deep dives
Hmm.
like even more like exciting, and there's like a stronger connection like personally as a writer where you're like, "Ooh, I'm like even more invested in this now." It kind of.
Oh yeah, and you never know where it can take you because this past, I guess earlier this beginning of the fall, late summer, over Labor Day, there's a big convention in Atlanta called Dragon Con, and I
Yes,
was on a
I'm
number of
familiar.
author panels and writing panels, but I also was on a history panel. It was a history of the Vikings' impact on British history because I have spent the better part of who knows how many years
Yes,
going and
exactly.
studying, and people can be amazed at how much research you put into a work of fiction.
You know what? And what cracks me up is then someone will catch you on something so, and they'll like hit you, they'll like email you or leave you a review. Like I had someone not like the color carrots that I used, and I'm like, they're like, well, they wouldn't have been orange, it would have been purple and white. And I'm like, okay, so now every time I mention carrots, it's like, okay, they don't become orange until about the like 17 to 1800s. Thank you very much. Like, I'm like, okay, if you're gonna like, so, and it's like silly over stuff because it's like,
Yes.
I did so much research on the movements of this military, yet you're gonna get me on carrots. Like, really, that's what we're gonna catch me on. But kind of out of curiosity, you said you went to Dragon Con in
Yes.
the like late summer, early. I actually have a friend who I've worked with and I'm good friends with, and I've known her for a long time. And she goes to a lot of those cons, and she's a pretty kind of big player in them, as far as I know. Her name is Linda Carlson. Do you by any chance know Linda Carlson? She speaks with she's Canadian. She's short. She dresses as a troll a lot with a beard.
I will admit there are about 90,000 to
Yeah.
100,000 attendees there, so
Well, a lot of times she does panels and stuff. That's the only
yeah,
reason
I
I
was gonna
asked.
say I'm new to the panels as of
Oh,
last
okay.
year, and I don't think I've had the privilege, as far as I remember, I'm bad with names, but as far as I
Okay.
remember,
No, I'm
I've
so
not had
much
the
so.
privilege of sitting with her on a panel. But it's a lot of fun, and any author I think would enjoy if you have a convention or have a conference near you to
Yes.
try to be on some panels and talk about whatever it is that you specialize in, because we all specialize or have some kind of basis of
Right.
knowledge on the writing craft once we've done it a little while, or history now. It would be
Yes.
it's a great way to get your name out there in a different kind of set of means.
We just came back from the historical romance retreat in San Diego, and I love this event. It's like a historical romance mini con is what it is. And it's very there's like themed nights. Like this year it was very gothic inspired because it was very close to Halloween. So we had like the widow's soiree, we had the masquerade
Ooh.
ball. Yeah. And there was a kind of and I'm going to use this language with intention. There was a gypsy caravan night. And I am I'm Polish Romani on my grandmother and great grandmother's side. And I do palm reading. And the whole idea for this year and that night came because last year at the event, I did like a palm reading panel where I kind of explained to people like how the lines work and
Hmm.
let them read their own palms. And then I did a bunch of palm reading. And there was a little joke that went along with the palm reading. So this year they asked would I do the panel again, would I maybe add to it? And this time I had cards where they could like make notes about their own palms. And I went through the history a little bit and then did some palm reading at both the workshop and then the at the caravan event. So that was a lot of fun. They had like a whole pop-up for me, and it was very kind of
Oh, fun!
stereotypical sort of,
I
fortune
love it.
tellery. But it was really neat. And it was neat because I got to dress in a certain way. And I'm like, I feel like I'm paying homage to my great great grandmother here or something, so it was kind of a nice um but so I was able to do that panel, and then but I haven't done anything like as big as something like Dragon Con, which would be, that would be super super exciting. I mean, I can't imagine like panels for an event that significant.
I mean, it's a lot of fun, and it's actually not terribly hard to be on them. It's just you have to go through the application process, and
Yeah.
it's a kind of a matching of what you want to do and what they think, you would fit best as, and you never
Yeah,
know exactly where you're going to slot in sometimes, but
exactly.
it's kind of fun. And sometimes you're slotted in some very unique panels.
Really?
But yeah, it's an easy application as far as I'm concerned. So if you're ever interested and want to come to the East Coast, it's a fun
So
time.
I won't lie, I'm working on that right now. I'm struggling with travel. I'm struggling with flying.
Yeah.
And I never have before. I was always, I've been flying on my own since I was like 10 years old, but I just, the pandemic, how people behave on planes, all the
Mm-hmm.
restrictions. I don't know. I'm just like and then when you're doing like panels or book selling, like you have to bring all the books, and
Yeah.
usually I have some costumes I have to bring with me. So it's like, yikes, it's so much stuff. And the
Yes, costumes.
logistics
Yes.
behind it is daunting to me. So I'm always marveled when people are like, "Oh, I flew here from, Chicago. I flew here from New York." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I respect you so much." But that is something that I'm trying to do. Like, I did a bunch of book festivals, kind of like Arizona, California. I've been trying to do that. But next year, I put in for a couple, one up in Seattle, but I never heard back, so I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
was selected. There were a lot of people putting in for that. But I'm going to be up in, I think it's Lincoln City. I'm doing the Books and Beaches up there in near
Ooh.
Portland, Oregon. And I'm like, and we're going to drive because it's a nice coastal drive. And my husband will
Mm-hmm.
just take time off work. But my husband and I have been talking about that. Like, we're like, maybe when we retire, because he's getting close to retirement age, he's like, I'm like, we could buy a small RV, and instead of
There you
flying,
go.
and we could just, I have a real flexible work schedule. I'm cutting back on some of my teaching. I'm like, we could just pack up the RV. I said, I've driven cross country before. We could totally make that happen. So that's something I'm hoping to be able to do, is either through driving or flying, trying to expand because I feel like there's a lot of opportunity in the Southwest, but not as much as there are in other places like Texas and Florida, and just in the
Mm-hmm.
Midwest. They have so many of these, amazing book festivals and conventions.
Yeah,
I feel
and
like the
I don't
East
know.
Coast is the
I'm
best coast.
again. I'm a little new to all that, but it's been a lot of fun. I have yet to go and sell at a convention and everything, and that was one of the
Okay.
things of when I was at the 20 books last week. I was curious to see like how many books people brought with
Yes.
them, and the variety, or were they selling just one, or were they selling a whole bunch, and trying to get an idea, because it does sound like a lot of work to come up with your whole.
We it's been a work in progress for me. Like my first I'm fortunate that I know somebody in our area who owns several bookstores. She does use new and resale books. Now,
Fantastic.
they're not super busy stores, so I might only get like one or two people buying the book, but um they are beautiful bookstores, and they're relatively busy, but people come in looking for lesser expensive books. They're not looking
Mm-hmm.
for full price books. So I think that's probably the biggest disconnect. But it is so I was fortunate that I was able to do some of my first book signings like practice style at
Yeah.
her store, basic Bargain Book Worlds in Lake Elsinore. I'm going to shout out to her right there. And I did that, and then um, I met somebody. I had an opportunity to do the historical romance retreat kind of last minute,
Excuse me,
and
it's
that was
swallowing. What?
that was the first time. And my husband made me like a pop-up, like he used PVC pipe, and we dressed it up
Ooh,
like
nice.
I had like a curtain
Tickle my
over it.
throat.
We had flowers, and I hung posters for it. So it was beautiful, and it stood out, but it wasn't. I was like, do I want to go for crafty and artsy, or do I want to go for professional? So I used it until I was like, okay, I'm going to pay for the license for this image so I can use it and really go big on it. And so I did that, but it's like I was just, like I did like I did like five book signings this
Oh,
year.
excuse me.
And oh, you're good. You're good.
Tickle my throat. Sorry.
No, you're all good. I cough and sniffle all the time due to allergies. You're all good. Like I am no one to judge anyone for coughing. Like it's all good.
I blame
But
the
they,
cold.
but they But so I've been to a couple different book signings, and every time I go, like I'll see someone doing something really unique or like, wow,
Oh
that
yeah.
really stands out. And so one thing my husband had also done is he had made me like it looks like a bookcase where it's two levels, it's
Oh,
kind of slanted. And so it gives you the idea of books on a bookcase is the
I
selling
like
point.
that.
But it's kind of just basic, and you have, I have my, 4 or 6 books lined up, and there was someone at this most recent book fair who had like lights and like orange leaves, and she writes fantasy, so everything was very kind of fae-ish. And I was
Yeah.
like, between the lights and leaves, I'm like, oh my gosh, I should make my bookcase look like a aesthetic bookcase instead of just here's my books on a bookcase. And so even though I had this very beautiful table, I had all this stuff, like I looked like a pro. I was like, I love that. I'm still looking for ideas. There were a lot of people there who I thought were doing it better than me,
Mm-hmm.
with regards to how they did their presentations. But we did the rave event at 50 Books last year. I managed
Oh
to get a
yeah.
table, and my husband and I were squished together with all of our books on half a table. It was super fun. Um, but we did pretty well, met lots of people, sold some books. Um, and then and it really depends on like what the event is. Like I did a bookstore in Lancaster, a little book bug. It was
Mm-hmm.
sold by an amazing woman named Rochelle. Um, Whenever I do her bookstore, like I sell tons of books, and most of them
That's
are the
fantastic.
historicals. I most of them are the historicals. Whereas at this event this weekend, it was mostly my contemporaries. So it's also like what books to bring and how to set it up really depends on like what the event and venue is and the like.
Yeah. Yeah. And like one of the things that I'm trying to step towards, and I know was one of the buzz things a lot of authors have been talking about this past few months, especially at the convention last week, was the concept of how many of us are trying to move towards direct sales
Yes.
and take control of that. And one of the things that I want to do over the next little bit is one, obviously, finish up the shop function on my website so I can have that capability, but also start a shop on this platform because I would love to do virtual live
Yes.
signings because I've seen other authors do that, and I
Yes.
think it's a lot of fun because then people who are not, people
Local
don't
or
have
at an
to
event.
exactly
Mhm.
be in your area, your region, where, whatever town or city you're in, and can still, see their book being signed and
Yes,
see the
and they
fun
get the
stuff
the
and
swag. It's
engage.
like
And
they're
then,
there.
yeah.
Exactly. I told my husband that over Christmas we're going to be doing that, because I do have so I just use like Wix as my, and I'm not at the
Mm-hmm.
point where like I'm like Wix works just fine. I don't mind if it says Wix in my name for my website. Like it's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so and I have a link on there that'll take you to my Square store, because the Square
Nice.
sales app will let you set up a store. So but I just had like sometimes I have really good ideas way too late. Okay, that's our joke in our house, is
Yeah.
that we will come up with the most brilliant ideas way too late. And I'm just like, oh, why didn't I think of this sooner? So one of the things is that I do have like some ads going like on Facebook and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
And my Glencoe is not exclusive to Amazon. I sell it, on Barnes and Nobles and everywhere. It's one of my series that is not exclusive.
Yeah.
And so I can sell it on my own website, but I have the link for the book going to Amazon on the ad. And just this morning, I woke up and I'm like, why is that link going to the ad? Why is that link going to Amazon? Why isn't that link going to my sales page?
Exactly.
Like,
That's the thing.
so now I have to go in and fix it. But I was like, what was I thinking? Like, I've had this shop up. But I do know that for a lot of that, you do have to kind of like advertise it. One thing I found super that people really like that I'm going to be trying to do more of, and it was super successful at the book fair, is book boxes. People,
Yes. People love book
especially, so I
boxes.
did like little PR boxes for people that were on my PR team, and then I had other people who were like, "Can we buy those? Like, how do you get those?" And so I was like, "Well, I have hardcovers coming out, and I
Mm-hmm.
could sell them as like a hardcover." And even people who were on my PR team who had gotten the little freebie one with like the one free book, they're like, I
Yep.
want the hardcover book box.
Of course.
And so I had just a basic, like, because you can pay to have like the box all crafted and designed, but I'm like, I have Canva, I have a kid with some mean design skills, and I have an awesome printer. I'm like, I can craft up each book box. So it's almost like an individual book box for each person. So it's not
Fun.
just here's your core box and what's inside is curated. Like even the box itself is like unique to each person. They have some unique like custom crafting stuff on the box. So that's what we do.
Fun.
And but I had the little box, the paperback one at the book fair. And then I had for my Marine series, I did Marine book boxes. And both of those sold like in a heartbeat, right? People coming up, they're like, there was
Hmm.
a kind of pseudo joke where I want your box. How do you get your box? And I'm like, I need to take a moment and laugh over the suggestibility of the language. And then I had people signing up to be able to order the box. And so I need to email them. So that's one thing that I want to do when I get my TikTok store going and my Instagram store and everything else. I really want to focus on those book boxes because um, people have been, I mean, and I'm not making any more profit on them than I would if I'm selling just the three books, or whatever, but there's something just neat to have that sort of curated aspect that people are really liking. They want those specialty, they want the special
Oh yeah.
edition, they want the niche, they want they want the vellum inserts, they want the sprayed edges, they want the metal, protective corners. So, and then along with that, I don't know if when you're at 20 books, you went to any of the Kickstarter panels or
Yeah, well, I did go to one, but I ran my first Kickstarter in the spring, and so I already kind of had a basis on it, but I did go
Okay.
to one to kind of get some other ideas, and
Yeah.
I've been networking with other authors who've run them successfully just because I want to build up and
Yeah.
improve. But yeah, Kickstarter is pretty popular. I did see a question for you a moment ago
Oh,
asking where you were from, where you were located in the States.
oh,
Okay.
I'm in California. I'm on the
Allergies.
West Coast. So it says I'm stripped down in my home with 64 degrees of air conditioning. Yeah, it's cold and rainy today here. It's like 60 degrees and rainy outside, and it's been 80 up until this weekend, and then suddenly the temperature dropped in the 70s, and today we woke up to cold and rain, and I'm bundled up in a sweater, and I'm in my office, which we retro fitted like our third car garage. So for a
Hmm.
while it was a it was an apartment for my son, my oldest son when he was in college. It has its own door. And it's not direct, it's connected to the house, but there's no door into the house. So it was separate. He had his independence, his freedom. He could do his own thing. He did have to come in the front door to like use the bathroom and get to the kitchen, but he's a young man. He doesn't care. So we had turned it into like this nice studio apartment for him. And then when he moved out to move in, when he got with his wife, when he got married, we're like, okay, we're retrofitting it again, and we have the back third of it is separated off for my middle kid for like an art studio, and then
Hmm.
I have the front part that has all the book stuff.
I
Um,
love it. My
that's
dream
it.
is to, well, my husband and I are looking for a house because we've been
Yes,
living in an apartment temporarily. The temporarily is now 2.5 years,
yes, it's
but while we
always
were
a
looking
lot
for a
more
house,
temporary than you
and
think.
so I
Oh,
want
been
a
there, done
place
that.
where I have my actual office space and not a office that has some furniture that, I mean, I love this couch, but furniture.
Yes,
I want my
exactly.
author office.
I won't like it, but in a way, I'm like, my husband kind of rushed it a little bit. Like, I wanted to paint it and I wanted to do all this stuff. And he
Mm.
already had the furniture. And I'm like, babe, I said I wanted to paint it. I wanted to do the whole thing. I said, I can't do that now that you put everything in. He's like, well, I wanted to get it in. I'm like, I understand that. So I do a lot of like, I have a lot of the like mural type sticker things. And then I have like my Disney posters from like when my kids were
I love
younger.
it.
These are the ones we kept. And then I have this really nice bookcase, and so I have like pictures of my kids and stuff up here, and then I've got like books and journals. I got my owls because that's kind of like my spirit animal, if you will. There, and then on the door over here, you probably see those are mushrooms, and because in my most recent book, like I'm doubling down on mushrooms, so I have a lot of mushroom like those applique stickers you can put on your wall. I'm wearing mushroom socks right now. Like I am doubling down on this mushroom because my book
I
through
feel like
Spitful.
those book boxes should have mushrooms in it of some sort.
Well, when I do start doing book boxes with my time travel, so in my time
Little
travel
stickers.
with Spiteful, and I have mushroom stickers. I was handing them out
There
left
you
and
go.
right, like here, take a mushroom. But through the book through Spiteful Books is the time travel. She has to go back in time basically to like save this mushroom because it becomes extinct in her time, and they need it to combat. I make a joke about yet another epidemic. Like I make a joke of it, like
Hmm.
everyone's like, we're so tired of these stupid epidemic things. We're not even caring about it. But it turns out this one's actually not so good. And so I kind of play on the whole, everyone got sick of COVID
Yep.
thing. So I'm like, I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna make that joke. And so that's what we did. And we used the idea because my husband and I wrote a lot of it together. He likes to say I wrote most of it, but a lot of the core ideas, like the setting was one that he
Mm-hmm.
came up with, and kind of how we had to shift the history, like because he writes alternate history. So that's a strength. And then he wrote all of like my fight scenes. Now I had to go in and like I'm also his editor, and so I have to go in and clean up a lot of it, but
Mm-hmm.
some of it's like, nope, those are solid. We're not, I'm like fixing the punctuation. Like that's all I'm doing. But he's writes really strong fight scenes. At our historical romance retreat, he did a fighting panel where he showed like how you'd hold the sword and what it would look like. And he
Love
brought
it.
like
I
all
love
of the
it.
swords in so you could feel how heavy they were. And he brought in guns and how you would do a duel. And so it was really neat. It was really popular. But so he wrote the fight scenes for that, and he was the one who came up with this idea of like some sort of disease, and he had seen an article about mushroom spores, and he's like, what if it was like mushrooms or something? And then we came up with the idea that basically the person has to go back in time to Johnny Appleseed up some mushrooms is what she's
I
doing. She's
love
got to
it.
try to cultivate them, make sure they don't because the Mad King in the time, our history that we made up, did a scorched earth effect and destroyed all of them
Mm.
because they only grew in this one little pocket. And so she's got to go back and find them before the Mad King scorches, the whole eastern seaboard of Scotland, and then like Johnny Appleseed them and figure out how to like regrow them and everything. So that was a lot of fun research on how do you grow and propagate mushrooms. Like it was fun. It was fun. It's like, okay, use the spores, but you can also use the little phalange. Like it was fun learning about how to grow mushrooms. And
One of
right,
those many odd questions of what do you do? What do you research for your book?
I
And people
know.
don't expect what?
Mushrooms, how to grow. Well, and it's funny because like a lot of times we see mushrooms out in the wild, they just grow in damp areas, like on the side of a
Yeah.
tree. And I used to live in Michigan, and we would get mushrooms all the time, and I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
think about it other than, don't touch them. I don't know if they're poisonous or not. Like that was the big thing. But yeah, I've been doing a whole lot of study on mushrooms, and like and the book is going to be a set of 4 trilogies is what we've worked out with the publisher. So book 1 is done, published out. Book 2 is in editing. Book 3 I'm writing right now, which is probably gonna be a little bit a little bit longer than the other
Mm-hmm.
2. The second trilogy I have ideas for, but I'm like, and so I'm like writing it in my head a lot. But I need to sit down and start like
Yeah.
really outlining
Yeah.
it and digging it in because I have a lot of ideas of where I want to go. But I'm like, I got to figure what's going in book 1, what's going in, like I got to figure that out,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to write like a really morally gray character. And I
I love it.
normally my guys are a little like they're morally gray, but they're like historically morally gray, so it's not like,
Mm-hmm.
and then if they are like too morally gray, a lot of times they're a little more villainous. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to write this character. But so anyways, mushrooms play a huge role. The book cover they even did the book cover, and they're like, what do you think? And I'm like, okay, we got to add some mushrooms in that grass. Like we can't have this book cover without a mushroom on it, like no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So they added the mushrooms, and yeah, and they're just kind of tucked in there, like you don't, but I was like, I like that.
I think
But
you should have a mushroom-shaped bookmark to hand out to people.
I'm working on that. I have mushrooms. Oh, I've got to show you these. Oh, you said it, and now you got to bring it to life. I found
I
these
love coming up with funky ideas. I love
on
that one.
Amazon. These are the best. Okay, so I'm going to pull them out of the box here. Okay, you know
I
how
love
when
it.
you have readers who are reading and they like to have like the little,
Yes,
um,
yes.
I have mushroom ones. They're
Oh, I love
There's a whole bunch of different ones. They come in little 2-packs, and I'm like, oh my gosh, when I'm doing my giveaways, I'm doing my Kickstarters, I'm going to be giving packs of these away. So
That's
people can
fantastic.
mark up their book with mushroom stickies. I was
I
like, I
love it.
love that. So yeah, I did that. I want to do, when I was at the book fair, a writer there, she had these gorgeous bookmarks where it's the ribbon bookmark,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's got like the metal piece at the end and then a charm or something.
Mm-hmm.
So and I thought those were beautiful, and I was like, did you make these? And she said, yeah. So I don't know if she ordered the bookmark strip and then added her charms. I have to look at that, but I was like, I could do that because then I could do like plaid ones or
Mm-hmm.
mushroom printed ribbon or something like that, and then have but yeah, everything, all my charms, everything I've been handing out has been some sort of mushroom as of late.
I
I'm
love it.
I'm doubling down on my mushrooms, so it's my themology right now, and I'm learning so much more about mushrooms than I ever becoming an amateur
Who knew? I love it.
botanist.
I love always finding out those kind of unusual stories about fun little quirky research about
Yes,
whatever it is. But okay,
it's
going back to the fact your Beauty and the Beast reminded
yeah,
me.
oh yeah,
So you have also your retellings of, you said, was it fairy tales or folklore
Yeah,
retellings on the
it
villain
is. It's
side?
kind of like fairy tale retellings, but I call it the before series because it's the idea is like what happened
The
before that fairy
prequel.
tale. And it's like fairy tales and it's like all sorts of fairy tales. Like one of my one that I'm outlining right now is the little or I'm sorry, Little Red Riding Hood. So it's those ones as well. And then I also have some other types of stories. Like I'm even looking into some like Edgar Allan Poe stories. Like I'm trying to play
Ooh.
with some of those ideas a little bit where it's not just our kind of traditional Disney fairy tale idea. Um,
Well, I know Poe is becoming a little popular again, especially since Netflix's Fall the House of Usher series
yeah,
has come
yeah.
out. And so I keep hearing more and more references to Poe or his style of
And so I'm almost wondering if I need
Gothic.
to jump ahead and because I
Sorry.
have the book covers for the next three ordered and everything. And then the third one is Before the Red Queen, I think. And it's the Alice in Wonderland. It's going to be the Red Queen story and why she's kind of crazy and off with their head and everything else.
I
And
love it.
I think it's going to dive into like mental health a little bit. So I have to kind of prep myself for that.
More
But yeah,
research.
so you were asking about the fairy tale series. What were you
Oh, I was just
did you have a
wondering,
question?
like, yeah, what kind of which fairy tales were you basing off of at this point, and how many you are gonna try to have in that particular series?
So I have I won't lie, my list is really long. Like I just kind of was
Hey,
thinking,
that's
what
good.
fairy
That
tales,
means
what
you're
stories?
not short of ideas.
Yeah, and then I'm like going through and I have like trope lists and I have like, and I have like one of the writer books, The Emotional Wound. And so like what, what is could the emotional wound be? That's kind of the trigger for all this. So,
Hmm.
I have the resources, yay. But it's been a lot of so as of right now, I have Before the Glass Slipper, which is a little that is probably my least dark, if you will, and it doesn't have a whole lot of magical elements because you don't have like the fairy godmother yet. It's just kind of the
Yeah.
stepmother and kind of why the stepmother became the person she was, and it's like it's actually more of a sad story. Um,
Mm.
and But it's kind of like just the me that was me starting to play with it, and I love Cinderella, and I always was like, why, okay, what would do to the stepmother? And I remember the movie Ever After with Drew
Hmm.
Barrymore and like Angelica Houston played a very like at the beginning she was kind of relatable and
Yeah.
then you kind of saw her kind of just after her husband died just kind of like disintegrate if you will as a human
Hmm.
being and I was like what would drive us to the point where she would be like that and
Yeah.
so that was actually my a little bit of my inspiration for the Cinderella book and then I did the Evil Queen from Snow White, and that one's a little dark. That one ends
I
a little
bet.
dark.
I can
Um,
imagine.
yeah, and it's kind of weird because the Cinderella one not so much, but like the Snow White one, it actually does kind of end in a happy ending because it's like the queen gets what she wants, so to her it's a happy ending. Um,
Hmm.
and then at least at the point where the book ends, and then I have Before the Cursed Beast, which is really the most popular of the three right now. And it's the retelling of the Beauty and the Beast, but it's the
Mm.
enchantress who turned the beast into the beast and it's their
Ah.
relationship and it's not this sort of contentious she showed up at his door one day and it's kind of
Yes.
like what happened between them in like leading up to that and then the moments after and then how she tries to right a wrong that she was also a victim of and so it's like
Mm.
a whole thing. And so that one's really popular. A lot of people really like some of the dynamics on that one. And then the one I'm working on now, it's about probably about halfway done in the writing process. I'm hoping to finish it by the end of this month. I have too many classes. Um,
It's
I
okay.
won't lie, like they came back and like I mean, I guess I should feel flattered. Like my campuses are like, oh my gosh, Michelle, we need you to come back. Can you teach? Can you teach an extra class? Please teach two class. And I'm very grateful. My students
Thank you.
really like, and that makes me feel good. But I'm like, I want to be stepping back. I don't,
Yeah.
so I'm struggling with that right now. But and classes are back in session for the
Hmm.
semester. It's my first full semester back, and I'm like, man, I am too old and too out of it to do this anymore. Like if it's not online, I need at least some online classes. I can't.
Gotcha.
This
Yeah.
is too much. But I'm hoping to finish that one by the end of this month, so that way I can be revising and editing it through the holidays. And I'm actually going to do a Kickstarter for it.
Fun. Oh yeah,
And
you mentioned Kickstarter.
Yeah, and this one's actually, I kind of went a different angle with this because I love the movie Brave, go figure,
Hmm.
from Disney with Merida. And but I liked The Witch, and I'm like, why would you have this like weird twist? And I've noticed a lot of magic stories, it's like there's like a ripple effect or a reverberation that
Hmm.
whatever you give out, something kind of an opposite or
Yeah,
something will come along with that.
balance.
And yeah, and so what'd you say? I'm sorry?
I said balance.
Balance, yes, yes. And I use that idea. I use it a little bit in the Snow White story.
Hmm.
And then I'm kind of reflecting on it a little bit here, but it's more that, it has to do with like your state of mind and where you're coming from. You have to be careful because you never know what you're putting out into the universe. So it's more of the idea of the unknown, that if there's going to be a ripple effect and how that will ripple and that type of thing. And so I'm playing with that a little bit and trying to make sure that that's all good. But like I don't so I'm hoping I can get that done by the end of November so it can be in editing and everything by and be done by the end of December, beginning of January. That's my hope. And then I can get that ready for release in probably February. But it's the
Fantastic.
story of the witch in the woods, and kind of why she ended up the witch in the woods. How did she end up bumping into the princess? And that one's called Before the Emerald Crown.
Oh, I
Um,
like that. Yeah,
so yeah, and it's very green, and if my green's my favorite color, and so I'm like, oh, I
me
get a
too.
green cover, for this one. So it's been a lot of fun. So that's kind of that series where it's taking just a slightly different, and it's fun to write because again, I don't have to do nearly as much research. And when I am, I'm looking up like witchy stuff or magic stuff
Hmm.
or face, like I'm looking up things that are not like dark and dire history. So
Yeah,
it is kind of a
nice.
fun activity.
Oh yeah. Well, I see we're rounding the hour, and I do always want to make sure I ask a few questions just to always get them in.
Oh yeah,
And
thank you very
crossing
much.
fingers that the book talk ether will let me do this because
Right?
recently it has stopped allowing me to download my lives and repurpose them because I love sharing them on YouTube and adding all everybody's
That's
content. But we shall
weird.
see. We shall see if they
You
smile
need to
this
start
time.
having
But
like another phone screen recording your phone, and so that way you're recording yourself. Like that's, I mean, at the point that we're at, technology is such a hot mess.
yes, it is. But let me ask, where can when people want to find you outside of Book Talk, where can people find and follow you? Do you have a website? Whether other
Yeah.
socials, if any? Do you have a newsletter? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, so I do have a link tree. It was a fortunate find because I didn't know about link trees because I'm old and I'm a Luddite. I don't like technology. And so what I did was I put out I was talking to my daughter, how can I have a link where I don't have to update everything in the back of my book, where it just goes to one link and I just update that. And my daughter's all, oh, like a link tree? So I do have a link tree. It is in my bio on Book Talk. It has my website listed there, Michelle D. Dalrymple, uh, dot, Wixsite.com. And then I also have my newsletter list on there. I have, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Instagram, Michelle Deerwester Dalrymple or Michelle D. Dalrymple, either one of those. Basically, if you're looking up Michelle and a Dalrymple, you'll find me. And so I'm on there. I've got my my Goodreads and my BookBub profile and my Amazon profile and all that. So I'm pretty much like everywhere. I don't do Twitter, so that's the only one I
Hmm.
don't do. But
Yeah,
I'm
I've never figured
basically
that
do
one out.
that. So and so you can find me and reach out to me, and then or MD Dalrymple author at gmail.com. So and I respond to emails. So I'm very open as to how people need to reach out to me.
Yeah, and now where can people find your books? Because I know you mentioned them a little earlier, but let's go over that again because you have different
Yeah.
outlets. It sounds like for your
Yeah.
various series.
Of course, all of them are available on Amazon. That's
Hmm.
the go-to. So, but if you're not an Amazon fan, you can go to Barnes and Nobles. My all of well, I think most of my paperbacks, and then all of my and then some of my series that aren't exclusive. So my Glencoe series, my Marine series, those are available through and I think Before the Mermaid's Tale, which is like my fun Little Mermaid version of my
I
Before
love it.
series. I have that available everywhere. That's my little 99 cent, download. And then so those are available, my books are pretty much available everywhere. And if you go to the my website, I do have a like you scroll down to like the second like the middle area, and it has the link to buy the books, and it has the information for the ones that are available digitally, and then all the print ones. If anyone wants to order those, get the signed copies. Those are all available as well. So those are all available through either my website or Amazon or Barnes and Noble.
Fantastic. That is really cool. And before I go back to Kickstarter for a moment,
Yeah.
I do also want to ask you if there was any topic you wanted to talk about that we have not talked about, or you had any questions that you wanted to ask that you had not asked yet. So this is time. And the same thing for anybody who's watching too.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. No, for the most part, I just wanted to thank you for this. I've only done a couple of these. I'm really, my husband and I sat down and we're like, okay, we're doing all this stuff. I'm trying to, figure out how to get more awareness out there, to meet more people, to let more people kind of find and discover my books. And so I feel like I've been stuck, and my husband and I have been talking about, like, maybe we need to get more publicity, maybe we need to look into PR, maybe we need to, and a lot of it's just doing things like this and doing these author chats. So I really appreciate that you do this. So you kind of opens up for you as well, because it
Whoop, I think I lost your sound for a second there.
Oh, sorry, my phone
there
went
you
off.
go.
Can you hear
got
me?
it back. I think I lost your sound for a second there.
Oh, sorry, my phone
there
went
you
off.
go.
Can you hear
got
me?
it back. I think I lost your sound for a second there.
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
my
no,
phone went off. Can you hear me? We're in a loop.
I think I lost your sound for a second there.
Sorry, my phone went off. We're in a loop. Okay.
That's a new one.
Okay, it's getting shallower. It's getting lighter, it's fading. So I do apologize for that. Can you hear me now?
Don't know about that one.
All right, did that work? Did that? All right, did that work? There's a weird delay now. Okay, did that? All right, did that work? Okay. There's a weird delay now. Okay, did that? All right, did that work? Okay. There's a weird delay now. Okay, did that? All right, did that? Okay.
If you need to go out and then come back in for a moment, yeah, it might be though. If you need to go out and then come back. That's funny. That was a new one for me. I know I've seen many a glitch, but that was the first time I had that. Hi. Yes, and my Irish. Hello. We'll see if she jumps back in or not. But let's keep my eye out on her. Let's see if she sees my invite. It does? Okay.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, that was new. I've never seen that one before.
Okay.
Hello?
We're getting there.
We're getting there. I see someone that chimed in saying that particular glitch happens to them all the time, so you're not alone in this.
Oh, good. I'm trying to get the camera to work, and the camera doesn't want to work now. This was fun. This was...
It's okay. All I wanted to say is, well, we have hit kind of like the hour, and that's not a problem. I guess like it was a sign. The signs above,
I guess it was our timer.
Yes, clearly. But if you ever want to do one of these again, let me know. I do them weekly. I try to plan well in advance. But yeah, they're just casual, fun ways to chit chat and answer people's questions, meet new readers, and just talk books.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. I guess so what I wanted to say was that I really appreciate that you're doing stuff like this, because I think it's a great way for readers and authors to connect. And I just wanted to say thank you and let you know I appreciate you doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. I find it fun, and I feel like I learn something every time I do one of these. So
yes,
it's kind of a neat way to talk, and in a particularly a field where it's very solitary, and as an extrovert,
yes,
I'm not. It's a nice way to see and communicate with fellow peers.
So I really appreciate it. I appreciated the invitation and everything else. And hopefully we'll keep seeing each other on Book Talk. And I would love to do this again. Maybe my phone won't ring that time.
That's fine. And yeah, we'll definitely keep in touch. And for everybody who's listened, thank you. And I will catch up to you guys next time.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.